So Suzanne Rossiter. I'm 52. I was diagnosed in December 17, so some sort of 13 months on with post-diagnosis. I started with peripheral symptoms in my legs initially, and then it went to my hands, and then slowly but surely it's affected my swallowing and voice. So I'd actually had an operation in February of 17, and there was a 6-week recovery period that then went on to 10 weeks because I had some infections and problems. I then started to get back into Pilates and found that what I thought was a core strength issue wasn't actually that. I was falling over, losing my balance, and I kept tripping over my left toes. So that started about sort of May of that year. I persevered thinking it was just recovery. I'd also had a skiing accident the December prior, and I'd hurt my rotator cuff on my left arm, and I was getting twinges in that arm, and I again didn't think anything of it other than it's recovering from the tear and the damage that I did skiing. So it got to September, and I'd had at that stage 2 falls, and we were actually on a camping trip with our son on Fraser Island, and it was a scouting route, and it was his Queen Scout trip. And so there was Michael, my husband, and I, and one of the scout leaders who happens to be a registered nurse. So we were all staying together, and one morning I got up and I just fell flat on my face. And she said, "Oh my God, that's not good. What happened?" And I said, "Oh, that's happened a couple of times now." And she said, "That's not right. Get and see your doctor straight away." So we came back home. Of course, I thought I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And then I got up out of the chair and I fell over our rug. And instead of falling into sand, I face planted into our tile floor. So I thought, no, that's not right. So went to my doctor or specialist who had performed the operation, and I said, "I think something's not quite right." And he said, "No, this is neurology department. We'll transfer you straight away." So it took about 4 weeks to get into a specialist, and then by the time I did the MRI and the blood tests, it was another sort of 2 weeks before we got feedback. And we got into the doctors, and there was Michael and I there, and he said, "Well, I've got good news. The blood tests have not shown up any of the nasties like cancer or Parkinson's or MS. Now, can I just check your reflexes again?" And then he sat down and said, "But the MRI has clearly defined MND." And Michael and I just looked at each other and went, "What?" He said, "Yes, motor-neurone disease. I take by the looks on your face you don't know what it is." And we said, "Well, yeah, we don't." So he gave us a very quick overview of what it was. He used Stephen Hawking as the ALS, sort of regarding light. And then he more or less said, but I can't give you the formal diagnosis. You'll need to do the muscle electrolysis test or whatever that's called. So it just so happened that he referred us. I was able to get an email off to the specialist, and they had a cancellation. So this was Wednesday, we were diagnosed. Friday, we were at the Royal Brisbane for formal diagnosis. Our son had finished school then. He's still in grade 11. And it was the beginning of school holidays. So he came along with us, and we're all probably so shell-shocked is probably, the way I put it. And Rob Henderson sort of sat there, and he asked Nicholas, our son, what he'd like at school, and he really engaged him, which was excellent. And at the end of it, even doing the test, he was saying, right, Nicholas, count off on that fancy watch of yours, what are the numbers? And then he sort of explained, look, this is been around for 100 years, and we still don't know what causes it, and we still don't have a clear, defined progression for it. So let's talk about what you're presenting, and then we'll get you into a clinic and we'll, go from there. So we all walked out of there hopeful that this will be a long progress, that it won't be quick, and we sort of had an element of hope that there was a team that would support us, and we'd be able to get through this as a family. Of course, we have 2 older daughters, one living in Dubai and one living in Melbourne. So we then had to go through the process of letting them know. Now, they all knew that I'd been for tests, and they knew what Wednesday's diagnosis was. So for them, we spoke to them and said, right, this is what it is. But at that stage, we had probably in the 2 days been online, we'd Googled, we'd done everything to try and work out what this MND beast is. And probably the most confronting is the, expected life or life expectancy post-diagnosis. So you get there's a ticking time bomb there. We then tried with each of our children to sit down and sort of say, well, it is what it is, let's keep going. As a family, we've always used a lot of humour. So for my kids, when I fell or, couldn't do something, they referred to it as my Susie Magooziness. And so we tended to deal with that quite well, much to the shock of some of our relatives. Oh, how can the kids and you joke like that? My mother-in-law had said. And then Michael just said, well, the alternative is to cry, and we've done enough of that, so let's just keep with the humour. And that's been really helpful, even to the fact when I was going looking for a walking frame. And I didn't want something that, it did indicated I was old or, decrepit. So we found this really cool walking frame, and Nicholas and Michael were up the back, and they're looking at hoists and things, and Nicholas said, "Wow, Mum, we could get this hoist and hoist you over onto the boat, and if we're not lucky there, we'll use you for burley for fishing." And the lady in the shop, she just was horrified. And I said, "Don't be concerned, this is just how we get through it all." So that's been a really good focus for us. The things that worked well for us, definitely the humour, but we created what I called our practical list. And it was all the things that the checklist tell us to do, all the things that we knew we needed to do. So we had to let people other than our immediate family know. And we found that it was just too difficult to have the same conversation with everyone. So we recruited in our family. On my dad's side was my aunt. My mum's side was a cousin. For my work colleagues, my best friend who used to work with me in the firm. On Michael's side, it was his sister, and they helped spread the news about the diagnosis to our extended family and friends. About a month in, we decided to let more people know, and I'd been sitting with Sarah from MND and Me, and she had actually helped us just put it all into perspective. We had, I suppose, so much information, and she just validated our feelings, the frustration in not knowing. You think, well, I don't know what I don't know. Help me to understand what's going on. I think different milestones have had different emotional impact. The first day when I couldn't use, I had to use a walker. I still could drive a car, I still had my independence, but I had to use a walker. And because I got a cool one, that was fine. I didn't feel so bad. I could stick my bag on the front of it and off I'd go. When I got to the point where I didn't have the arm strength to navigate a roundabout in the car, I realised I had to give up my licence. And that was a big milestone. Yeah. So, going from independent walking to walker, unable to drive, then I got to the point where I was finding it hard to use my computer. So that was getting challenging, and then I got to the point where I was having falls with my walker. So then we had to go to utilising both a chair and a walker. Then I had to reach the milestone where the walker was no more. I was still managing to feed myself still managing to use the mouse and one finger type. Then the milestone when I just couldn't do that anymore. So feeding, drinking, using a computer, all of that requires someone else. That was a hard one to deal with, but I used carers, family, as much as my carers hate me doing the bus statements and, the family planning and stuff that we do for school trips and sailing and all the rest of it. They sit there, work the computer for me, and we do all the banking and, accounts for the businesses and things that we've set up. So that's been a milestone that was big. And like I said, the milestones are only as big as you let them be. And I know that very soon I've got a new chair coming, and I've got my commode and hoist coming in the next couple of weeks, and that will mean that my standing transfers will come to an end. But that's another thing that we will work around and make it happen. We haven't let it stop us yet. This is a condition that has happened to you. It's not you. And there's a very big distinction between the two. At the end of it, we're all dying. It's just my path might be defined more so than others. But, we could all be hit by a bus tomorrow and not know it. So it's more about just do what you can for here and now. Certainly some of those plans have been around my milestones, but mostly it's about our family and friends and what we need to do to support them. MND is a condition. It's not you. Advocate for living your life the way you would have before. It's not your last day or your last breath. It's just where you are at this point in time. And keep being positive. Make time to do the things that you want to do now instead of putting it off. And just try and find a workaround if it's not there for you. But don't let it put you in a box or define who you are. It's just something that's there. And family and friends, while they have different journeys to cope and accept it, at the end of the day, they're there for you anyway. I think you find peace in different relationships. You find that you can still give back, you can still add value, and at the end of the day, still contribute in a lot of ways more than you may have before, because you're really focusing on those things. And that if you're prepared to be hopeful, have a laugh at yourself, not take it too seriously, but also, it's okay to have a shit day. It's okay to have a great day and, work with that. every day is a good day. And, you know, if you don't know how to do something, make a plan and do it anyway.